Okay, shall we start? Hello, Myanmar Information Security Association, Myanmar Tadincha I think I feel there, Patama Uzong Cybersecurity Series, event a coup webinar, the coup CXO Round Table, Kulo Chai, Taya, Joy of Chimian Bija, the Kontishi, to Jimmy Alon, General, Lale, Kiliani, General, Juzulubai. So I would like to welcome all the attendees here, making some time on a busy week and busy weekend morning on a Sunday to join us on our inaugural cybersecurity series presented by Myanmar Information Security Association. And this will be our one of the first events that we organize. And in this here, I will start to, introduce us about the roundtable agenda. So first of all, we're going to be starting at 10:30. However, if the participants are coming in as we go on, we will be starting pretty soon. So with that, I like you to ping your friends. If you have colleagues who are joining this panel as well, do note that you can ping them and ask them to join immediately. Chris, good morning. We do have our panelists just joined. So we'll do a background of keynote speakers and panelists. We'll also do a keynote speech by our guest of honor, Mr. Leonard Aung, and we will have the roundtable after that. We'll do a very lively panel discussion, and we will accept Q&A, questions and answers, at the end of our panel, as well as we'll do a brief wrap up of today's agenda. Right. So with that, I'd like to, we want to tell you and we want to welcome you to our, once again, to our CXO Roundtable. This is going to be a series of annual events that we will share from Myanmar Information Security Association, MiSA, on our thought leadership, as well as thought leadership on information and cybersecurity topics and landscape. In particular, there are things that are important to our community here in our community for information technology as well as information security. I think that the line between information technology and cybersecurity is getting blurred by the nature of a lot of digital transformations that are happening, as well as, of course, cybersecurity as one of the important pillars. And with that, I like to do an introduction of our keynote speaker, who is also our guest of honor as well, Mr. Leonard Aung. He's a regional information security officer for APAC from GE Healthcare. And Leonard and I used to serve on ISACA Singapore chapter board of directors back in 2013, where he was the president for 2 terms, which is a maximum term a president can, of course, serve. And he has been very active building up cybersecurity capabilities and awareness around the world, flying the ISACA flag. He served on a board of directors for ISACA as well, international board of directors. And he holds numerous information security certification, no doubt, and one of the most respected information security professionals out there globally. So welcome, Leonard, and thank you very much for doing this. The next panelist that we have is Mr. Forum Mehta. He's a senior director and Apex CISO for PayPal, and he's been leading cybersecurity, as well as we also serve on the ISACA board of directors back in 2013, where we were putting together the information security conference called GTEx, which was held in Marina Bay Sands. And it was very highly received locally and internationally as well. So Forum and I, we have a very close relationship that span across information security brotherhood. So with that, I'd like to also welcome Mr. Forum Mehta. And next we have our local technology senior leader, Ujjwal Solan. He's a chief technology officer from Yoma Bank. He actually started Yoma Bank IT department, and he holds various academic as well as professional capacity, and he's been helping, and he's also one of the patrons for Myanmar Information Security Association. We're very glad to have him here with us. He's been driving the digital transformation at Yoma Bank. As you all know, since 2016, trying to move the bank to a core banking system, upgraded it together with two of our colleagues. I used to work with Gojo Sulin as well in my previous capacity as a head of IT. So yeah, very glad to have Gojo Sulin here with us as well, and very honored that you can join us this morning. Next, we have Chris. Chris is the Managing Director for Digital and AI Innovation Labs. Chris has been, also the patron of Myanmar Information Security Association. Very glad that you can join us this morning as well. He kindly let us use this, this Zoom platform because this can host up to 1,000 attendees. And yeah, thank you so much, Chris and Masinana for helping us host this platform. He's previously, prior to joining the AI Bank, he was previously with the AI, the group CEO of Max Myanmar Holding and CEO of Max Global Investments. Chris has more than 20 years of professional experience, including 10 years with the Big Four accounting firms. And yeah, I think, and he's been specializing in strategy and implementation of business technology transformation projects for private and public sector projects across the US and Asia. He also holds an MBA from University of Southern Queensland and Master of Science in Project Management from the Boston University. So very, very glad that Chris can join us this morning as well. Next, we have Aung. He's the Chief Technology Officer from Wave Money. And he's been very active since he got back here to Myanmar about a few weeks back. And he's been joining on a lot of the panels and contributing his knowledge that he has gained over the years globally from the US and across the region. So he's been he's been moved to the United States since he was young, pursuing his higher education there. He spent about 25 years in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. He's also one of the mentors for Pandia Institute in Myanmar, and yeah, he just recently joined CTO from one of the region's largest e-commerce company. So very glad that Kyaw can join us this morning as well. Okay, bit about myself. I'm the moderator for today's panel and roundtable. My name is Myint. I am the Managing Director for BIM Cybersecurity and BIM Consulting. Prior to BIM, I used to be the Chief Digital Officer for PricewaterhouseCoopers in Myanmar, and previously with, of course, used to work with Yoma Bank as well as Telenor. And yeah, I just very glad to be here and to be on this panel and moderating it. And yeah, very, very glad that all of us have that kind of connections across our working relationships and professional capacity. So with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Leonard Aung, our guest of honor and keynote speaker, to provide us with a very interesting keynote topic. Leonard, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning to Mike as well as the board members of the MiSA. It's really great to be here today, and I still have fond memories of my visit to Myanmar about 2 years ago. So although we can't travel at the present, but it's happy to be in the forum together with you. And I would like to also say good morning to all the fellow panelists and to everyone that has attended this webinar. I hope that this will be a good session for all of us. Let me share my presentation. Okay. So you should be seeing my presentation slide. And I would like to share with you in the next few minutes just about two particular topics. One is about the state of cybersecurity. It is a study that has been conducted annually by ISACA. There are some insight that will be useful for all of us to know, as well as some of the priorities for CISOs. So let's get started. Right. So as I mentioned, that this ISACA has conducted the annual survey that is called State of Cybersecurity. And the latest of this study is published earlier this year. And they are quite interesting findings that is not inconsistent with the previous years. So we know that the cybersecurity threat is still increasing it is a belief that the attacks will continue to increase. If not, they will be at the same quantum, and only a few people believe that it is decreasing. And we also say that this is especially true in our region, that cyber incidents are underreported. So when we look at what are the statistics of cybersecurity incident, especially in the ASEAN or Southeast Asia, it is very hard to find these numbers because a lot of countries do not require a mandatory reporting for any incidents, and therefore the public data around this are hard to find. But we know that we believe that cyber incident will likely to increase in the next within this year and as well in the future. Now, with that belief that cyber risk is increasing and the fact that cyber attack will continue to increase, we also know that it is harder to find security resources that could help us to defend against these cyber threats. And a lot of time, it takes longer for us to hire someone to fill the position. And a lot of organizations are understaffed and they have openings for cybersecurity position. And this is actually a great news, right? Because it creates an opportunity for students, for the mid-career, or anyone who is currently working, whether you're from audit, from risk management, from IT, or even from non-technology profession, the door is wide open for you to consider a career in cybersecurity because there's a need. And as we go more digital in the future with all digital transformations, we also need the stronger support to secure those digital transformation initiatives. And here are just some additional information that hiring takes longer, and having the right people with the right competencies is also not easy. So when it's very likely that when you hire a cybersecurity person, that you will need to continue to train them so that they have the current skill to be fully effective in defending your enterprise. Just moving on, this is a slide that I created based on the literature studies. That is very interesting that even though a lot of our life are being changed because of COVID pandemics, a lot of our life are being disrupted, but there is an increase in cyber criminal activities. The earliest that we can see that is related to COVID-19, it happened in Japan, whereby there are a lot of Word documents with the macro inside. And if you execute that macro, then you would be infected with Emotet. And that is the earliest known COVID-19 related malware in Japan. And coming February, we see that a lot of targeted attacks in manufacturing, transportation, pharmaceutical, as well as in other industrial sectors with the different APTs and malware. The following month in March, it spread to Europe, Vietnam, Iran, and India with a lot more malware. In April, we see a masterboot record rewriting malware that would also either wipe your data or encrypt your data. And it's all coming through phishing and COVID-19 related so-called Htin. On May, we look at the ransomware for the Android mobile phone that impersonated contact tracing applications. And in June, we look at the nation states that are looking at targeting the businesses. And since then, we have seen a number of large enterprises being affected by ransomware like Garmin, CWT, and a few other companies. So it is clear that the cyber incidents are really increasing. It's not something that we believe, that is the fact. So I just want to share with you what are the trends then. Well, first, because people work from everywhere, we have to promote the zero trust principle. This is where we allow access, allowing our employees to work wherever they are, but at the same time, we shouldn't trust them because they may be working on untrusted device and so on. With all this increasing security requirement, it's very important as well that we need to ensure the security experience remains simplified and transparent to the employees as well as everyone else. so they don't have to go through a difficult procedures that may issue in others' issues. Collaboration, definitely a key, that we have to work together and we have to share information so that we could reduce the possibility of getting affected by cyber threats. And last but not the least, focus on resiliency. We would never be able to defend everything every time, but if we are able to increase our resiliency, we ensure that we can get up and running as soon as possible, even after we suffer from an incident. And this is my last slide, and I just would like to highlight a few things. With the given the current situation, we need CISOs will have to consider what is important, right? And a few things that stood out. For example, one, enabling employees to work remotely, and a lot of large enterprises have this, but a lot of small medium enterprises may not be prepared for this. And because of that, that should be the first priorities. And we need to enable that remote working in a sustainable and secure manner. Secondly, enable multi-factor authentication. If you have not done so, or only if you have done so in some application, you may have to increase the adoption of multi-factor authentication. Third, fortify the human firewall. I mean, every individual in the organizations play an important role in ensuring that our enterprise is secure, and therefore additional effort needs to be put in place in order to fortify all that is involved in our organization. Last but not the least, as businesses are suffering from the impact of COVID-19, the cyber criminals are looking at a way to monetize and to gain financial advantage. Because of that, we have to be alert of potential fraud. There will be a lot of creative fraud that may not be detected easily with the current monitoring procedures. So that's something that we have to be aware of. With that, I end my presentation and I would like to hand it back to Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard, for very insightful presentation. Let me share my slide again, guys, once again. So can I have a virtual round of applause for Leonard? Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to start the video. Let's see. Can I hope everyone can see the screen. Leonard, can you see the screen? Can I?
I see, yeah, the backdrop.
Yeah, backdrop. This one? Okay.
Yeah, I can see the question.
Okay, okay. Well, great. Leonard, thank you so much for sharing the insights. When the, COVID-19 happened, you're absolutely right. There are increasing number of social engineering attacks that are happening around. And, Myanmar people, Burmese people, we love our social media. We love Facebook. We love using other sort of social media. And I do think that the scams come from all shapes and forms and sizes and every channel that you can ever find. So with that, of course, we have to understand from, your perspective, probably on the biggest threats or risk of, cybersecurity during COVID-19 that will be relevant to, with some examples in ASEAN, maybe in healthcare, maybe in payment systems that you have been seeing, and you can share briefly about that as well, if you don't mind, Leonard. Thank you.
Yes. So as I mentioned, I think typically phishing and social engineering is nothing new. I think all of us has become accustomed to it. But one thing which is interesting when we speak about COVID-19, this is a global event that resonates with everyone. So because of that, we see that the spear phishing, business email compromise, getting a higher effectiveness because of this. So for example, if someone receives an email with a local language, it could be in Burmese, or it could be in, let's say, in Chinese or in Korean, right? It's customized depending on where the target is. And you may impersonate the government official. Sometimes the phishing email may bear the official stamp. And that just
like an official announcement.
Correct. And it basically allows people to believe that that's genuine request. And because of that, I think we see that it's likely that this kind of attacks is getting more successful. And yeah, I think I would probably stop at that. I understand that other panelists may have a different example as well.
Understand. Thank you, Leonard. And what about forum? Would you have any relevant examples that's been going on in in ASEAN, or from perspective of digital payments? What you've been seeing? Some common attacks as well. Would you like to share?
Sure, Mike. So first of all, once again, congratulations on getting this series started, and really welcome the opportunity for us as a global community in terms of cyber, because the first thing about cyber is it does not care about the borders at the national level. And as our organizations, as our community interact with each other or internet, whether it is for social media, as you alluded to earlier, whether it is for payments, whether it is for some other important services, it's incredibly important for us to kind of come together and start community dialogues like these to understand and share best practices. So with that, best wishes for MISA to continue doing these type of events increasingly.
Yeah, thank you, Forum. Yeah, in terms of the examples that you've been seeing since the since January, if I may, yeah.
Sure. So let me start with from a PayPal perspective, it's a 20-year-old tech company primarily providing payments, and trust being one of the primary pillars in which we stay and live and offer to our customers, because the buyer and sellers don't trust each other. And what we started seeing as COVID began, and especially if you think about the 350 million odd customers that we have, the primary buyers live on the western side of the hemisphere, and the sellers are based here, especially in China and India and Southeast Asia,
right.
To a point. And as COVID started coming up, people were starting to look for any and every information that came out. But one thing that we started seeing was a lot of abuse in terms of cures, whether it was tablets, whether it was mask, whether it was vaccine, whether it was whatever it is. And it was extremely hard for us to try and redo our risk models, our authentication aspects, where somebody comes up with a simple thing like a price gouging for masks. This is a special COVID related mask for $50 a pop. And, as a responsible global provider of payment services, we had to come together and stop those type of fraud from happening. On the other hand, you've started seeing these capsules and vaccines being sold that were not approved from, whatever parts of the world. But from an enterprise perspective, so this is in a commerce landscape, but if you look at it an enterprise level and what type of attacks were coming, you could see that as digital channels became the primary way of communicating within an organization, resiliency and availability, as Leonard, quite well articulated, became the #1 most important thing for organizations to stay afloat. And that's why ransomware incidents started not only being more reported, but people started paying those bounties, because otherwise, I mean, in general, people at least thought twice before paying those bounties, but now they had no other options, since if you can't really access your data, there is no analog way, there is no way for people to go in to the office to recreate something or do the backup restores or any of these other things.
Wow.
That was one thing we saw in again, Leonard listed countless examples, both globally as well as locally, that were happening. On the second hand, the perimeter got redefined. So for us, we have about 60 offices around the world, and suddenly from 60, we went to 30,000 offices, with every individual's home becoming an office. And suddenly, all your organizational policies or your DLP, all your email controls, it becomes extremely hard to enforce them. And hence, education becomes extremely important, whether it is BEC type phishing attacks, spear phishing, other things, where people just started sending, urgent emails trying to lure people into compromising or giving away their credentials. And that became an extremely difficult things. We saw in Twitter's case how
That's right.
it was for an attacker to fool the customer service department to give them basically keys to the kingdom for certain types of actual customer accounts. I mean, let alone compromising an enterprise system or accounts, but this was one step further, in my opinion, that they got access to customer profiles and started doing, sending tweets on their behalf. So there's lots of those type of things that have happened as well. And increasingly, I mean, as we go through the panel, would love to give others an opportunity.
Sure.
There's ways in which we can come together and try to tackle on key hygienic factors to, arrest this trend.
Yeah, thank you for a very insightful message, as well as Leonard for, of course, during your keynote addresses some of the key risks that are happening. It used to be that we do not care so much about cybersecurity. A lot of companies will say, "Oh, cybersecurity is a sunk cost. It's expensive. Why should I invest in this solution or that solution, or why should I train up my people?" Or cybersecurity awareness seminars are, quite sporadic. You don't see them around because people assume that you should know this. But once it really being tested, I think that becomes an issue. So I think with that, I would like to switch over to our local experts here, like Hlaing, to share with us about your thoughts on having what might be the biggest threats for banks, especially during this COVID time, right?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. As we know, right? We started the cybersecurity journey together in the Yoma Bank a couple of years ago.
Right.
And I just want to share a bit more about the Yoma Bank information, because that is where I know best to the audience. So first, for example, in the last year, Yoma Bank, we received cyber attempts, about 1 million plus attempts within our detection, right? So that is 2019 and 2020, up to now already 9 months, right? Our record showed that around 3.5 million attempts already. So it's a kind of 4x increase, but that is maybe 2 reasons. One is as cyber knowledge or hacking knowledge are more easily available in the Google and internet, people try to test it out. That is one reason. The second reason is as the bank, we mature more and more cyber defense and also detection, we able to collect and detect more the attempts. So when we do the analysis, 80% of the attempts are coming from the phishing and malware, and the rest are miscellaneous attacks. So these are major attempts we detect in the Yoma Bank defense network. And when we look at the phishing, it's quite easy nowadays to be able to do that. We also do some sort of the internal phishing to be able to do the cyber awareness, something like during the review session, we will send out the email about the salary increase policy. Then everybody will open and then they will key in the password, right? So there is something internal we test out. And also sometimes we use some of the activity happening popular around the city. So that's people tends to open those kind of the email and phishing link. But nowadays, as a COVID is the most curious topic, right? Everybody, if you say, okay, someone already found a vaccine, or who, some of the popular celebrity, they already have an impact, that people try to open that one, and that has having a very successful attempt on that. And from there, what happened is sometimes the attacker able to compromise the email. So we used to have email compromise from that, asking tapping some of our supplier email or some of our colleague email and trying to arrange to send money throughout the bank. So luckily, none of the attempts are success because of that we are able to detect and protect well. But sometimes it is not just how I say that the cybersecurity. You need to increase your operational flow also to be able to detect such kind of the things. So what I try to share is that there are some attempt success we see in the market, and some people may have financial losses, and some are just not be able
nuances. Yeah, there are nuances. They're trying to annoy you.
Correct. So they are different objectives. In the past, what we see is that the people just try to find around with the attacking, right? So they don't have a really motive. But in this recent year, we see that they have a more objective and motive on the gaining the financial value throughout the attack. As a bank, we are able to see such kind of the attempt more and more.
So monetary motivation is becoming a key factor recently, because previously it was just playing around, see if the systems are weak or things like that, trying to test their tools. And you do see the 4 times the increment of attempted cyber attacks on the bank as well. Wow, that is some numbers to be to be withheld. With that, thank you, Go. And of course, I would like to invite Go Chris to share with us a little bit about some of the examples that you have been facing so far.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, Myint, somehow I couldn't share the video.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I think Ocheko Wen will be able to allow you to share, and Masu as well. I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
So maybe I've just started with.
Sure.
So yeah, so I kind of shared. What's happened last 3 to 6 months, particularly in March. I think Myanmar context, there are 2 trends. One pretty much on the low tech, mainly focused around like social media, Facebook. People posting, in pretending to be a bank or a bank employees or card departments, or there's a lot of increase the project activities doing this, because I think the one is also our consumers are not fully aware about these a lot of do and don'ts. And so there have been, especially in the payments segment, we have for example, like AirPay. There are people set up as the fake pages, fake accounts, and try to, lure the customer and try to ask them to transfer the money to their account so that they can set up the account. So we have those. It's pretty much a low tech, but but we are quite aware of increasingly happening that. So I think that is not just a technological issue, but we also need to work with regulatory, law enforcement, some level, how to take action, right? Because this is happening in Myanmar pretty often, now.
Right.
Increasingly,
yeah.
Increasingly happening. And second part is that it's the cross-border, the cybercrime. I think this is no longer the attackers within Myanmar or any context. It's just we have 2 attempts, serious attempts to compromise the email, on behalf of the business relationship that we have with the partners. So these are very sophisticated, involved with the payment partners, bank partner, technology partner. So these are like quite a organized international crime, cyber crime. I think this been also increased because a lot of countries, a lot of actually the advance in the technology, and particularly in the hacking, and then they're aware that Myanmar is an easy target, and because of most of our banks, and I had to accept it, and we had to accept it. Our practice, our policy, our defense mechanisms and a very state kind of the emergent state. So I think they see that is the easy target to penetrate into our system, compromising and social engineering. So I think there were quite a big attempts in increase in social engineering. I got a call, say somebody from ISACA from Singapore, and say that I'm the main MD of the bank. I need the information. So there are a lot of these things happening. So so most cases, I got like 2 or 3 emails claiming that the chairman of the UOB bank or HMM the UOB bank through the linking. They were it's happened in the past. Usually we have Africans contest, the prince want to transfer some money. But this case is a very popular, is that some ex-banker contacting to you, want to talk about business and try to talk about deals, talk about refinancing. So we see a lot of these cross-border using this social networking, not just the Facebook, but LinkedIn. A lot of these penetrate this, get into the high targets. Some are even maybe the big guys, my boss, they were targeted to. They may not be aware of it, or somebody really genuine to the big guy, right? So this is what we have seen. The one is very much immune to is low tech in the social engineering and getting information, then organize it at the back end, and then penetrate and organize and break into the system and create a scenario that we were mostly convinced this is the case. With this current crisis, we can do a lot of food due diligence. So it might be flipped into, and some of the transition might be approved. So I think this is a very challenging time, and we need to take very precaution. But yeah, both happening in this context, and Myanmar probably being the targeted more and more due to the COVID situation. Thanks,
thank you, Bill. Thank you, Chris, for sharing such a compelling story that is really happening in Myanmar. A lot of people think that, oh, Myanmar won't be a target. Everyone is a target, right? So we kind of forget that we can be part of the they say that we need to be combine our forces together because the bad guys are combining their forces. So it's almost like a war that we cannot lose. So with that, I would like to ask Htin the same question, Ago. And what do you think of the the situation right now in terms of the risk?
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everybody. I think on the chat, some people are not able to see the speaker, so I'm hope that
hopefully
the organizers are actually helping.
Yes, we are.
Because
yes,
we have a lot of handsome speakers here, right? So.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there you showed up, Kyaw. And there you show up.
Okay, so yeah, the way that I see is that COVID definitely, like Leonard said earlier, we have had these the threats of the cyber threats it's not new. It's been there always, and it's been increasing, and there's not a lot of the requirements to report. So sometimes we don't have the visibility. But this COVID-19 has actually fast forward a lot of those things. We have got a lot of visibility. A lot of people are using the digital channels, and because of that, actually, it increased a lot of the need for the awareness, the need for the measures as well. For example, the platform that we're using right now, right? Zoom. And I know that, I'm sure that you guys have heard a lot about Zoom as the, related to cybersecurity, the threats, and the solutions that they have been using. It's not actually new. What they are using, if you actually know a little bit about the video technology, there is the streamer, and there is the viewer, and how in the video conference in the webinar, a lot of people actually do quite, it's quite common that you have the video streams coming in encrypted, and then you have the transcoders, and then you put it out into the viewers in a way that is most acceptable in terms of the quality, in terms of the bandwidth, whatnot. But because of the COVID, a lot of people give a lot of attention to how Zoom has done it. Because why? Because Zoom has been the winner in this particular field. A lot of people have been using it. A lot of people pay a lot of attention to this. And same thing, but the way I'm quite impressed with how Zoom actually has responded to it. Instead of like doing defensive in terms of the just trying to defend, my solution is the greatest and it's okay, you guys just don't know what you guys are talking about. But they took the ownership to really address in terms of the awareness, in terms of the security, and that's something that I think we can all learn from it as well, right? So going a little bit deeper into that, I think the I think if I look at the last 3 to 6 months in Thailand, one of the biggest mobile operators got this the incident where a database that they have was actually exposed, and because of that, although the threat might not be the biggest that they can expose, but actually it creates a lot of the into the news as well, right? And then, you know, going back into my previous experience, there are these threats that actually has been there, but because of the technology advances, those threats which would have been obfuscated in the past now are available even to the we call the what's it called, the script kiddies, right? They can actually do it now as well. So actually, it is very, very important for us to start paying a lot of attention to these things. The thing is that the thing is that when we, especially with the COVID, because of situations right now, there are situations where we need to get a system or you need to put a solution as fast as possible because of the situation on the ground. And if we don't have the expertise to do those correctly, sometimes we will miss the proper measures to be put in place to make sure that our systems, the practices are stable, secure, and it has the measures to make the you know, protect our users, right? So that is actually quite important as well, because if you have the need that you need to have it, especially nowadays, you can go and get from the Dockers, for example, and then just do the Docker compose and get a system up and running. Although the page on the actual off-the-shelf page says that do not do this if you're going to be running this in the production system. But because it's easy to just run and set it up easily, and people do set up with the default ports, default passwords, default this, default that, and then becomes the target for a lot of these outside threats as well. So I think it's we need to make sure that we have the proper security experts in place with the skills. At the same time, we need to have the good strategy to make sure that we have to understand this is important. And again, we have to understand that the visibility of these security incidents are going to be increasing. We have to make sure that the awareness, training, education to the public is also communicated properly as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you. So in summary, right, if I have to do it in Burmese, I hope everyone don't mind, so that for the convenience of everyone who's listening in. So in summary, to show me your solution or to Ludiga Atika or weakest link to your general Chilinapono, or Ludi go never general target Tabia Kajar general in a Lucia Chide, the awareness to harm you who Piro through a who lonely the fishing lo harm you want who let generate the gap in situation you go Chris Pioza low echo just only left your get on so to a pin situation lo harm you to simulate low period looked up to dead right out. Pobiro Yongi 9, I want the incident to your solution. Israel Joutru Larry Hale, Pobro creative today, Pobiro Yongi Yan situation who pit a Haja, or legend or wave to put to it. Below solution, the Napanja Hajar general challenge Gala Palace, or A looked up to the result. You know, general looked at the Yonema, so not secure to the Yomian Totline secure Mafiono, or Yon Duino general Pian Labra, Piani, looked at Hama general the Sinko Pule Sheet upon. Now that was general technology, technology malady, the malware who have you win dog and ransomware who have you win like percent or PR away, Mr. Forum, let to pure that, but not error to rally the payment system, you told me that Hajar percent beyond, percent down a little more when you're down now, error around your payment is on the through or Yapipo Lure, no? And I will do a change of version of pure like our house. So we're going to go to the next question. Before we do that, I think there have been some complaints about not being able to see the video. So let me see if anyone attending here cannot see the screen, but I hope they can see the slides though. Right now we're trying to see who can, and from the audience, we're trying to fix this problem. So stay tuned. We're trying to, enable the video for everyone to see. So we will keep talking the panel, but at the same time, we'll make sure that you are able to see our, handsome panelists and speakers here as well. So just give us a few minutes and we'll try to resolve this issue. The second questions that we have is the impact of those risks, especially for financial institutions, healthcare, and e-commerce, right? So in terms of, what is the impact and how big it is. We need to really describe it in terms of probability of that happening, and the actual impact from a risk management one-on-one perspective. We need to put it into some numbers so that business owners and SMEs and government regulatory bodies are able to imagine the impact that could happen. So any thoughts on that, Leonard?
Yes, thanks, Mike. I'll probably address this from the healthcare industry, since I'm on the industry. So in my previous organization, I work for a healthcare medical service provider. This is where we have clinics, doctors, and we provide medical services as a general practitioner, physiotherapist, as well as specialists. So during the pandemic time, as we know that we have a circuit breaker, or in many countries you call it a lockdown. That basically means that it's not easy for people to go to clinics and see a doctor for simple things. In fact, it is not encouraged for you to see a doctor unless you are really sick. And that basically creates two problems. One, a lot of people can't get medical care. Secondly, it is not a good business for the medical service provider as well. So one of the ways to do that is that we have to quickly spun up the telemedicine. This allows people to use their mobile phone, their tablet, or their computers to connect securely with the doctors and do consultation over video calls. And if there's any prescriptions, then they will be sent by the courier. So there's no need to travel to go out from your home and see a doctor. That will increase your risk. But in order for that to happen, right, a lot of things are exposed. For example, there's a conversation that is that's going through the untrusted connectivity, that's the internet. And we also have to open up the medical data through API, so that when the patient have opened up the mobile device, they open up the applications. The application will have to understand who are they speaking with before they connect to the doctors. And there are a lot of API calls back and forth to determine what's the account balance, eligibility, and so on. So with that, basically, you're opening up the traditionally closed system in the healthcare sector into the internet. And that requires a lot of security, a lot of testing, a lot of risk management as well. And that will also link with the payment, because with the telemedicine, then you also have to do online payment, and you also have to arrange the supply chain, the logistic courier, right? So you don't need to leave the house. So definitely the risk has increased a lot, but we are happy that it is possible. It is an example of a success story. But you can imagine if we did not do it correctly, then patient data may be at risk, customer data, financial data in terms of credit card numbers may be at risk, and also medical history and so on. But I'll probably stop there and probably pass it on to the other panelists to share their views as well. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Leonard. Forum, any the impacts in terms of the numbers, or that you've been seeing, how would you put it together in terms of the risk and impacts?
Sure. So let me do a couple of things. Leonard alluded to the State of Cyber report that ISACA does.
Yep.
That report is based on a survey of more than 2,000 professionals all around the world, and I feel there's a lot of wisdom and insights that people can take from the findings of the report. On one hand, it looks at the talent and the skills, the workforce and the skill set piece. On the other, from a trends perspective, to your point on the one, what is the impact of these things that are going on? With more than 25% of those respondents based in Asia Pacific region and spread around the industries that you have highlighted here. What they found was certainly, as we have already established, that attacks are increasing, but primarily what's happening is security functions are scattered within IT operations. So there's lots of organizations that over time has not been able to prioritize security hiring or talent development. And now they are facing a situation where either IT operations has to come up and support some kind of an incident without having the right type of knowledge, or do not have the real ability to report cybercrime, work with law enforcement, work with other agencies or consortiums that can help them respond a little bit better. And hence they have no other options but to either pay the ransom or to take on the fine and start investing in new technologies. And overall, this lack of staff and oversight impacts operational performance, not just from a technology's ability to enable business objectives, but also in the overall kind of what the business models look like and their own journey on digital transformation. And then quickly, I'd probably call out before I mention specific to PayPal, that ISACA Singapore started doing a very similar survey, almost the first of its kind, directly focused on Singapore, which I would highly encourage MiSA to consider doing within your Myanmar community.
We should, yeah.
Partner with, Frost and Sullivan to do this. And this is the second year in a row that we did. And we found like the top 3 concerns for our professionals, which are primarily ISACA members. We have about 3,000 here now, close to it. Hopefully we'll reach it very soon. Were around data leakage, insider threats, and then ransomware. It was interesting to see how supply chain became one of the biggest area of concerns for them, especially during COVID and other things, because it was very hard to trust, whether the vendors that you have, the suppliers that you have the right type of cyber hygiene, right type of discipline, right type of compliance requirements to follow any kind of response measures that you needed to. I mean, again, Koso Lin mentioned how the number of attacks have increased. We saw how I mentioned, at PayPal level, how e-commerce is becoming, an interesting way where you have to adapt to your risk models and algorithms. We heard about from a bandwidth perspective, DDoS perspective. So the ability to respond at the speed at which we requires that having that supply chain working closely step in step to enable the measures has been one of the biggest challenges that I'd probably highlight. Both the reports that I mentioned are available for free on each of our websites. So, the first report is on isaca.org, the other one is on isa.org.sg. And while it's not going to be directly applicable to Myanmar, because there is a difference in environment, I think there is a lot of, again, wisdom and insights in understanding what professionals are seeing, how they are responding, what type of countermeasures and impacts that they feel need to be prioritized for ultimately security to take this challenge and convert it into an opportunity to help, come out of this in a much, much stronger and foundationally sound manner. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Forum. That's very, very useful. Now, again, I do think that I want to flip it over to, of course, Go Jocelyn and Go Tian and Go Chris, in terms of the actual monetary damage, if you will. What is the likelihood of this pandemic era, cybersecurity impact would be, if you have to put it to numbers? Do you have any guesses?
I think in terms of our current environment, it is quite difficult to put the exact number in terms of the value, right? Because we don't have proper reporting and record in our sector at this moment. But the reputational damage is, we can see, but it is also quite difficult to measure in terms of the value.
Yeah, to add to what Coach Jocelyn said, I think that definitely, impact is high, right? But I think, going beyond that, because I've worked in the healthcare back in the States, and also with the e-commerce in my previous experience, now with the financial institution as well. When it comes down to what is the risk and then what is the impact, all comes down to people's lives, right? The people's life is the one that is going to be impacted, and especially this is actually for the people who we cannot afford to you know, like, these are the ordinary working class people who, if these impacts happens to them, it's a huge impact for them. For example, in healthcare, like in security, in cybersecurity, we say that we have the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And if any of those things get compromised, right? For example, in the healthcare, if the people cannot get access to the healthcare that they want at the time that they need, they can actually lose life, right? Same thing with the financial transactions. When they actually need it at the time, when they have no other ways for them to, you know, get that assistance, and there is a big consequence that it will happen to their lives, right? And also when it comes to e-commerce, a lot of time people think that, oh, e-commerce is just like, you know, online shopping. Actually, e-commerce has changed a lot, because we have the video commerce, we have the social commerce, we have the, you know, online to offline, O2O, the small merchants. Everybody is now trying to get onto this digital economy through the e-commerce. And when these systems, or when these businesses get impacted, and that their lives is impacted a lot as well, especially in this time of COVID, when they have to turn to the digital channels.
So the risk, the immeasurable in terms of, it could even be human lives, right? So that's what you're saying. The impact, you know, you cannot, even though you cannot put into monetary numbers, it could be something like, you know, some people will have challenges because they can't have access to their healthcare. Well, Chris, yes, would you have any impacts that you want to put into numbers?
I mean, there's numbers, of course, in the financial loss could be, I mean, Myanmar context could be in multiple millions, but, you know, we usually, we don't spread out in the way. But the one of the sector that, one of the area that for financial service we try to focus on is that it's not just about the tangible financial loss of the financial institution, or maybe compensation need to be done from the financial institution perspective, right? There's also the trust, and I think it's very important. If people trust the financial institution, that's why they put money, they put they are saving, you know, they consume the service daily. So if we lose the trust, this is the intangible, the asset that we are losing, you know, public trust, that people are, same thing for healthcare, same thing for some of the transition system. So that's why we are focusing, you know, even monetary value, some transition cases, some fraud cases, or some attack might be small, but intangible value that we have to pay for, which is higher, is the trust, public trust, and public regulatory view on the institution.
So public confidence, right? That you lose that, yeah.
That's probably that, and also it has the consequences, right? For example, I can give you very recent case in the COVID cases, and the Chamber of Commerce tried to do the basic QR system, and which is very meaningful, very well, meaningful, the really useful use case for the QR system. But just that's because of security fraud, and the system has been the attack and compromise, and that become our like a scandal a little bit. So to me, it's not about we lose opportunity. I think we lose a big opportunity to be utilized in more tracking, more usage of QR code, more trust into technology. But we lost the opportunity for that, right? People start using it, or people don't want to depend on the system. I think as a technologists, as innovators, I think we have to be very aware of we are actually responsible for, and consequences if we do the sloppy, not proper secure system. I think that's where outcome is the public will not trust, and public in future system, people will not.
Even though we have good intentions about it.
You have an opportunity loss is a higher intention more than money. So that's why the reputation.
So the impacts are higher. Generally, we do agree that that would be you know, of course, you know, the actual impact is not just monetary losses, but it could be reputational, loss of trust, loss of opportunity for, you know, to be able to utilize digital.
Yeah,
So,
Mike?
so with that, yes, Leonard.
Since just before we move on, since you are asking for numbers, and I think I'll probably share you some numbers so that for the audience benefit. I think the challenges of getting the actual numbers, as I mentioned earlier, because there's no mandatory reporting systems in many countries, so it's hard to aggregate what is the number of losses other than surveys. And we know that surveys are not accurate because it depends on who participated in the survey, and there's no way to validate whether that numbers that was submitted is a right number.
It's an accurate number. Yeah.
But I would like to probably share with the audience a couple of articles that we have observed in the past 2 months. So there are 2 high-profile ransomware attacks. One happens in Garmin. So if you know, Garmin is the smartwatch producer, and according to some to the public write-up, they actually paid up to $10 million to get their system back, right? So I think even though that numbers may not be validated, but that could be give us some kind of a picture, right? How much ransomware incident could cost. And the second incident that happened on the same month with the global travel company, Carlton Wagonlit Travel, CWT, and it was reported that they paid about $4 million to get the system back. And one audience, Jayesh Dega, mentioned about there's an incident about someone, it's actually a woman that lost her life because she was having heart attack and she was rushed to a hospital in Germany. And because that hospital was suffering from a cyber attack and they were not able to attend to her, she was sent over to the nearest hospital about 20 minutes away, and she died en route. So that's an example whereby someone could lose their life, right? In fact, on the same month, which is last month, there was also hospitals in Bangkok, in Thailand, that is impacted by ransomware. But we didn't know the report because it's not reported. All we know that the system are not available. People have to bring their, like a hard copy of their medical data because the system was not available. Yeah, so I hope that I can share that for your benefit.
Thank you, Leonard, and of course, thank you, Jayesh, who is also our MiSA member, for sharing the security incident that causes the life, right? So we are very sorry to hear that, and which is why we wanted to understand about tips and do's and don'ts that we can offer to the audience. Of course, I would like to keep it to the next one in the back burner because we're going to be talking about a lot of tips and tricks. With that, of course, if we have to start our cybersecurity resilience journey, in your expert opinion, what is one thing that you would do if you can do it, right? So if money is not an object and you have a lot of security people on your team, and if you can do anything, then what would that be? Well, what kind of advice would you offer to the audience? So I will start with Forum and back to Leonard after that, and Coach also, of course. Yeah, Forum.
Sure. So I wish there was a silver bullet where you just buy a solution using unlimited money that you've just offered. While keeping that offer on, I'd say probably cyber hygiene. If you look at all of these successful attacks, the common theme around it, whether it is ransomware, there's patching. When it is phishing, it's about multi-factor authentication or email system and the advisory. So I'd say in general, 80% of successful attacks are because the cyber hygiene in an organization is not implemented. And then hygiene is not just about technical controls, right? I mean, from a tech perspective, I'd probably focus primarily on authentication, email, and the segmentation, which whether we call the latest term around zero trust or just understanding how do you establish trust within an organization. But I'd probably go a little bit further to say hygiene also means accountability around the organization, having executive support and appreciation for what does security mean to your customers, what does in this new digital, kind of era, what does a good experience mean, and what role does security play in it? And then how do you hold executives, whether they have security in their title or not, accountable for the overall risk from a digital perspective in your organization. But that probably, those would
cyber hygiene, basic cybersecurity controls, or maybe IT general controls should be implemented. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Leonard? What would you do if you have you don't have to care for the budget?
Yeah, so I think recently I've been thinking slightly a different approach. I think all of us has been doing the normal cycle whereby we look at controls, we deploy the controls, and we also try to secure everything. And then you may you may perform a testing now and then, usually every year, and try to remediate based on that findings.
Sure.
But I think we now have to move on to a bit more advanced that is typically done in a larger company. And this doesn't have to be stay there, but you could start to think about this as well. We have a concept what we call the blue teaming, the red teaming, and the
Correct.
purple teaming. So you have a so-called your set of security professionals that are doing defending, meaning the deploying control, hardening, and implementing best practices, policy, enforcing policy and standard. You also have a different team that what they do is just try to attack your infrastructure. It's always better to have your own people trying to attack your infrastructure, try to find what are the weak spots and provide this information back to your blue team so that they could remediate. And if the blue team and the red team works very well together, this is what we call purple teaming. So I think that's something that we have to look at, and it should be more effective than having a
so you don't
approach.
wait around for attackers to attack you, but rather you proactively attack yourself and try to find a vulnerability using your concept of 3 teams that are maybe separate or or logically separated, so that you can find in advance the potential threats.
Correct. And on the second point, of course, in your application developments, I think instead of doing a static analysis, you could also do a bug bounty program. I mean, you can set aside some budget and you can get someone else to run it. If anyone
might be cheaper.
I mean, sometimes you could just have a few hundreds to a few $1,000s to find a bug, which it costs you much more to pay if someone were to exploit that.
Understand. Yeah. I very, very good suggestions, Leonard. What about Jocelyn? What would you do if you can do one thing?
Yeah, Mike, very good question. And I'm afraid to say that I have no answer. If you ask me to do the only one action, right? So if I borrow the from the Jesse, right, there is no silver bullet that I have no answer. Just to do one. But if you allow me to say 3, then probably
we can do a special wish for you. Three wishes.
I can probably do the top 3 I would like to do. Number 1 thing I would like to do is secure the data privacy. Right, so because the data is very important, especially for a bank. So the consumer data privacy is something very important for me to do as an action. So the infrastructure, everything, I would like to make sure that the data are in the safe box, right? So all the protection infrastructure level to be able to say, for example, if I have jewelry, I want to keep a very strong vault inside my house. Even though theft coming into my house, they may not be able to steal it because of it's in the safe box, right? So even the hacker are in the network, if they cannot get the data out of the network, then it is good. So first thing I would like to do is safeguarding the data infrastructure. The second part is most of the time nowadays, every organization doing the apps.
Correct.
Right, so just Chris also mentioned that, right? So a lot of the organization are doing the apps. So whatever we do the apps application, I would like to harden the apps that the hacker cannot tamper. Because some of the time, the architect forgot that apps you develop, so you think your app is safe. But actually, the apps download into the consumer mobile, and that apps are not belong to you anymore, right? So you have to look at if I say the Leonard presentation, you have to look at from the zero trust architecture that all the apps you develop, launch into the market are not safe. So the apps connection back to your host or your data center, the security should be measured on that. Right, so you have to be very well authenticated that someone can use your app, hack back to your data center by using the legitimate connectivity you develop. So something I would like to say is the phase 2, I will always try to do, I will secure the apps, putting all the measure hardening inside the app so that it cannot tamper, to be able to get back or link back to our data center, which is a phase when we do the protection.
Right.
The topics is a very important, and we need to spend a lot of time and money on that, which is our consumer cybersecurity awareness, or maybe digital literacy.
Right.
Yeah, this is something we're very passionately working with the MiSA on that, right? Because Chris also mentioned a little bit on that, right? In Myanmar, if you use the Facebook social engineering and ask the password, people are thanks to provide their password. So
yeah,
whatever you do,
then they will give, yeah.
Right, whatever you do the protection step 1 and step 2, if people are keep giving out their password, then there will be a stay risks. We cannot do that. There will be a stay. People are losing their financial or maybe their personal data around. So that is area 3 that we would like to focus and try to improve the digital literacy and cyber knowledge of the public awareness. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Go.
My 3 answers.
Thank you, Go. And that is very, very comprehensive. Go Town, anything to add, bro?
Yes, thanks, Mike. So there's one thing I would say that it's a strategy, right? It has to be a strategy. Yeah. So I think in my past, like some of the companies, security actually has not been the top priority.
Right? Yeah, top
right,
priority.
Exactly, because a lot of people say, oh, it's nice to have, but now it has changed. So first thing is that strategy must be in place to make sure that we take this as a priority in the company, and this is very important. So at Wave Money, we are very serious about security, and it is a top priority both inside and outside of the company. We take a risk-based approach to security and align with the international security standards and best practices to continuously enhance our overall security posture and maturity. Our operation model is under extensive security program comprised of our, people, process, technology, but to really ensure the confidentiality, integrity, availability, and protection of our products and services. We have safeguards implemented in areas of management, technical operation, and physical security controls to secure our customers, data, and organization. Our operations team continuously assess these controls by, the other panelists mentioned about the monitoring, alerting, notification with the security incidents management to really effectively control and also remediate any security-related incidents. But coming down to the application or the app security, it is vital. It is vital for us as well, and it starts from our source code down. We accomplish this by practicing this security design, performing the regular, vulnerability assessment and pen test, like, the APT, together for them, I think Leonard mentioned about the red teaming, right? Yep. It is also very important. Secure code reviews, very important. We also have to focus on the automation to align with the speed of our apps releases and the app updates. As a CTO, which is also one thing very important for me, is also continuously innovate and adopt new technologies which will help us even further and make it even more secure, because it's not a one-time thing, it's a continuous thing that we have to improve. New things are always coming up and new things that we need to adopt as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Go. And Go Chris, thanks for Go Tian for sharing this. Go Chris, if you have to do one thing, what would you do to actually start your cybersecurity journey? Or if you can do 3 things like Coach Jocelyn.
No, I think thanks, Coach Jocelyn. I think you make a very good point. Thanks, go on. I think look like you guys cover a lot of good things already. So I have not left with very narrow thing to fill in. But since I come in from consulting a little bit like Mike, my first thing for even internal organization or any of the client organization, I think where do you start from the cybersecurity? I think is we start with the baseline assessment, right? So you could be done internally or with the help or external, because a lot of people today, when you walk in any organization, they say that yes, we have everything. Yeah, we have a firewall installed. Yes, we have a two-factor authentication. Yeah, we do the pen test. Everybody will say that, but then something happens. Or something. This is always the case that we are constantly happening ourselves, right? So the important, I think, the way to start, and I think the very good points, look at the data governance, strategy, approach, and all this. I think this is having broad assessment and have a baseline where we are clearly identified, where we are in data governance, where we are in our parameterization, where we are in our user access control policy. It's a lot of these different elements. You may call it people, process, technology, and all the area, but where is our baseline, right? So I think that's important assessment, our diagnostics, if you will, for organizational wide, but not just technology piece of the assessment. It's important how well your organization align, understand security, and how many people follow the password security, how many people are still using the password 1, 2, 3, right? So you need a lot of this to get down to the bottom and understand organization-wide assessment of where you are. I think this will help you to what to do next and how you can improve and in phase by phase, right? To get a realistic outcome. Yeah. That's what we might
understand. All right, thank you, Chris. I think it's like going to a doctor, right? Before the doctor give you any prescription or diagnostics, they probably have to do check your temperature and whether you're doing well and that kind of stuff. So current state assessment, yes, and I think Forum's answers also resonates with where you are in terms of the cyber hygiene, and doing that kind of assessment will be the start of how we're going to start our cybersecurity journey, because we do have, I like to also share about the cyber resiliency framework. I quoted the MIT, Myanmar, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that they had a paper that talked about, before the event horizon, right? So event horizon is before the attack. It's about protecting the business and broadening the awareness. But after the attack, it is about whether you're prepared by having a responding and a recovering, from the attacks and managing the consequences. So inside the company and outside the company, a little bit of quadrant, and I'll share with the audience later on as well. We also want to talk about the managing the risk, managing digital risk. I agree with Kyaw and Golden Islands that at the beginning we have to do, board of directors will have evaluate, director, monitor those such risk, and if investing in controls will be essential. If you don't have a clear and sound strategy, I don't think the risk controls can be invested, as well as there are unknowns that are buried inside, right? So that's the reason why we should do assessments to ensure that we uncover those unknown risks. So I think that in a nutshell, potentially that would help our audience understand a little bit more about what we're dealing with. With that, I like to also bring up the positive side of this round table by talking about what are the opportunities then? Is it all bad things that are happening, or how can we improve the public and private sectors? Is it a partnership? Is it independently work together? Because oftentimes, as in Myanmar, we do not have a cyber law yet. Cybersecurity incidents, we don't know, like what Chris mentioned, right? Where do we report and who do we work with? Well, that's becoming an issue. So with that, I like to start with Leonard on what are the potential opportunities that you see?
Yeah, I think the business model is being challenged now, especially those business model that are traditionally rely on a physical interaction, right? With this pandemic, we know that we have to find a different way on how we are able to deliver services through digital channels. Just like I mentioned earlier, we have able to deliver medical services through telemedicine rather than purely physical consultation in the medical clinics. And likewise, for example, in the current company that I work for, we have medical equipment that is typically only accessible in the hospitals. But if there's any issues with that equipment, we have remote technologies that allow us to log into the system securely and be able to ensure that that medical equipment keep on running so that the hospital are able to provide services. So I think all this pandemic currently bring us an opportunity to accelerate our digital transformation initiative, either converting the single channel business, which is perhaps physical into omni-channel. So you now you have your existing delivery channel as well as digital model, or you could look at a revised business model that totally something different. But whatever it is, I think the digital transformation should be accelerating, and I hope that the business leaders are also understand that in order to do this right, I mean, there must be an investment that is being given to allow this new digital transformation to be successful. And along with that, this is where the cybersecurity is also important, because no digital transformation will be successful without a secure initiative that comes with it. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Leonard. And Forum, any opportunities that you see in terms of partnerships or public-private sector opportunities?
Sure. I mean, clearly you've said it a few times already, Mike, right? Collaboration and learning from each other's experiences, learning from all the attacks that have been mentioned around the world. There are lots and lots of lessons that everybody at an individual level, at an organizational level, at a country level, we can take back. I think from a collaboration perspective, obviously it's important to create forums and opportunities for information exchange, to look at, for regulators, for agencies, for your certs, to see how certain other countries, other markets are doing cyber advisories, whether again at the ransomware and more technical level for organizations to pay attention to, or at an individual consumer level from scams and other things that are happening. I would say that from and there was a comment also mentioned that there is also an opportunity, especially for Myanmar, as you mentioned, that there isn't a very good ecosystem filled with policies and standards and regulations, to not try to reinvent the wheel. It is extremely important specifically to your point, to make cyber a competitive advantage, to take advantage of existing industry standards, whether it is things like PCI in payment space or other cybersecurity acts that have been passed within ASEAN, whether Singapore, Malaysia, others, and look at their strategies, look at their experiences so far, work together with the ASEAN Center of Excellence that have been created in Thailand, in Singapore, and they collaborate with Japan and US and Europe in multiple ways, and see how you can kind of get involved at that level to, take advantage again of the standards that are already established, the regulations that already exist, to allow your businesses to not have to deal with the complexity that comes with all of that. And it will be important, while I kind of take the point that Leonard made around surveys and evaluations, for a country like Myanmar, I think it will be extremely, extremely important to constantly do surveys, to constantly bring people back to interact with organizations like yourself, so you can become the voice of the community and inform the policymakers on what is it that the community needs help with. Which way do you want to create some standards and guidelines on? Where do they overcorrect at something so we can kind of support them and look at that. So if you bring a active ecosystem where there is information exchange, there are advisories, there are ways to learn from other experiences, and then take a heartbeat of what the community is currently facing or feeling, and then respond to that, I feel you could truly enable all the businesses looking at this as a challenge right now to turn it into a huge opportunity for your own market.
Yeah, thank you, Forum. I think that hearing from representing what the community in Myanmar thinks, and what kind of security controls or regulations around, and what kind of incident responses, and coming up with those approaches, and building up the cyber skill set, professionals, knowledge base, awareness. All of this will ensure that building that economy, just like what Leonard was saying, to ensure that we have a proper controls and guidelines in place so that you can accelerate faster and you can have newer and bigger opportunities. And this is the time, right? We've been talking about digital transformation for the longest time, for the past 5 years. I think it just got accelerated in the past 12 months, right? So we are cramped and doing things, and there are a lot of priorities to be set. So with that, right, Coach Jocelyn, I would like to ask you, where do you see the opportunities the biggest, for the banks?
Yeah, COVID change our lifetime significantly, or maybe we can say that it's disrupt our way of living.
Disrupted, yeah.
Right. So there are a lot of the negative impact COVID bring. At the same time, we see a lot of the positive thinking come along with the COVID. From the financial institution point of view, in the past, most of our consumer prefer cash. So Myanmar is a cash-based country, right? 99% of the transactions are cash-based. So when we promote the digital payment ecosystem setup or digital currency, it is quite challenging. When we approach the merchant to accept the cards or wallet, right? Some of the merchants have a quite resistant that they don't want to do that. They want to accept the cash more easy and simple for them. But COVID changed the way of thinking, the way of the people nature. Now, most of the people work from home, right? Everything you use online to order and then you pay online. So that created a lot of the opportunity on the currency, digitization, plus digital payment, right? That's also bring the same importance of the cybersecurity awareness program to the organization. The more you go to cybersecurity for the organization. Cybersecurity is like investing something you never want to use, right? So that's why most of the time we don't have priority on the cybersecurity. But nowadays, because of the digital transformation is mass, right? Without digital transformation, you may not be able to survive in the market anymore. So cybersecurity became priority in most of the organization. At the same time, we look at the healthcare center. In the past, we used to follow the doctor, right? So in Myanmar, wherever doctor go, we always try to follow and go and queue in the clinic or hospital 2-3 hours to see a doctor. And nowadays, most of the hospitals start adopting the telemedicine, right? Which is quite successful in our neighbor country, India, 10 years ago things. So now it's good, people are start moving using the technology in many areas. It's a positive point that, we are able to open our door and we change our mental shift, right? From physical to using more easy to use the technology. So that will create a lot of opportunity for technology vendor or solution, right? So we don't need to reinvent, but we just need to bring whatever suitable to the country and adopt and implement quickly to be able to jump start, right? We can leapfrog nowadays in a lot of the area. That is a huge opportunity. COVID changed our lifestyle.
Thank you, Coach Jocelyn. I do agree with you on that part, right? So if you imagine our telecommunications as well, we have no G to 1G, 2G to all the way to 4G LTE now and 5G. So I think that we are leapfrogging, and one of the things that COVID brings is accelerating that transformation journey. And Coach Chris, in your opinion, how does it change for a bank for creating new opportunities in your opinion? Or maybe I'll go maybe away. So how about go 10 and go to 9? Do you see any opportunities here?
Absolutely, good Mike. I see huge opportunities. Actually, this public-private partnership is very, very important for us. I think as for all the digital transformations that I've seen, in my past experience, cybersecurity is one of the strategic imperative. It is very important, and because of that, if private is only doing that without the regulations, without the with the government involvement, then it can be actually it can be one-sided, right? So, but with the public and private partnerships together, that I think a lot of the regulations, rules, and laws will become more pragmatic and more realistic to the country that we are in, right? To especially Myanmar, right? So I think it's very, very important. Again, like what Forum said, we also need to make sure that we are adopting the international best practices as well, so that we are not reinventing the wheel. And that is also very important for us as well. That then like for example, if you look at like in terms of data protection, right? Look at the GDPR or the Thailand PDPA. There's a lot of the synergy in terms of how these regulations and laws are together. But when we do that, I think the opportunity actually is a win-win-win situation, a triple win. Win for our government and also regulations to be clear. Win for the businesses to know what to do and what not to do. What are the things that we can follow? So there is no gray area. The last one actually is very important, which is to our consumers and users. This is actually where they are going to be winning in terms of the confidentiality, integrity, and also the availability as well. So I see huge opportunities in there. Of course, there is like a huge opportunity for the career path for the
cybersecurity professionals as well. Yeah, and that brings us to our last but not least question, but the most important part about this panel is about bringing trust, right? Trusting the digital systems that we're using, right? So everybody thought that, by just like what Jocelyn and Forum said, there's no silver bullet, just one solution, buy it and it will be, over. Then none of us will be talking here. It will be all the vendors talking, right? So basically building that trust, how can we build that trust in your opinion? Probably I try to use, not to use a silver bullet here, but if you have to do one thing, what will build the trust for the consumers and regulators and even for the businesses? What does digital trust means and how can we achieve that? And Leonard?
In fact, in this time around, I would like to ask probably Kyaw or someone else to start first. Sure. I will give my thoughts a bit later.
Yeah, sure. Oh, okay. So in that case, go Jocelyn then. Yeah. What is trust? Digital trust means to you, and how can we achieve that?
Oh, thank you for giving me opportunity, Leonard. As I mentioned, right, there is no silver bullet, and I special request for 3 things to do. But from the trust, what I try to say is that there should be a governance involved, right? So most of the private sector, public, right, 1, 2, 3, they will build everything. But the most important thing is sometimes people need to be trust on the ecosystem. Yeah. Right. So the consumer without trust on using the ecosystem, then that ecosystem, especially the digital payment ecosystem, may not be successful. So how to build the consumer trust on the ecosystem? So one of the most important thing for me is a protection, right? So as a consumer, we should believe that we are well protected, right? So to be able to protect, there will be a proper governance, regulations, law, enforcement. Right, so saying that you do something wrong, you will be punished, and you do something right, you will be well protected. So there is something missing in our Myanmar payment ecosystem at this moment, right? Strong governance, enforcement, and protection to the consumer.
That will build the digital trust for the consumer. I think Chris also mentioned earlier that having these kind of systems, once you lose their reputation, once you lose the trust, it is hard for people to get back and trust the system again, because they have once bitten twice shy kind of situation. So I
think what I try to say is it is not the technology, right? So technology alone cannot build the trust. What best secure technology you bring, you still cannot build the trust, right? So there should be a regulator, governance, enforcement, and support on building the trust that will accelerate the journey much faster.
Yeah, that building that trust. Kyaw, what do you think about building that trust? Jocelyn had mentioned the fact that you got to have a regulator governance in place so that the consumer will start trusting the system. But what about you? What do you think in terms of building that digital trust?
Yes, I totally agree with Jocelyn. Right, it is very important, and that is actually why that when it comes to cybersecurity, like we discussed earlier, in terms of the confidentiality, integrity, availability, all these are to make sure that we can maintain that this security policies in place, regulations that we follow, compliance that we really pay attention to is very, very important for us. But in addition to that, the public awareness or the promoting the security awareness and training both internally and externally is also very important as well. And that's why we do a lot of these community campaigns, on ground activities, and that we see policies out of the situation, like social media, everything that we actually take advantage of these different channels to give the awareness and trainings. And that is also very important for, if people don't know what they are into, and if especially with all these threats of the social engineering, people lose trust. But as the more that they are aware of, the more the education they have, the more that they have the insight of, oh, but this is do's and this is not don'ts, this don't, then they will they will have the better trust in the system that they use as well.
Thank you, Go. And Go Chris, of course, you talked earlier about trusting the system and ensuring that what we do our part to protect our systems as a digital innovation experts. What do you think? What should we do as professionals? How do we build that trust?
Yeah, I think there's a two folds. I mean, we talk about trust, right? So one is a human as psychological aspect of it. So is how I mean, usually in the Myanmar context, either the people trust too much or people don't trust at all, right? So there's a situation where there's usually we fall into that trap, right? So people don't trust, or people just simply trust everything, right? So I think so we need a lot of trust. It's a two ways. I think we need to advocacy and also to building up the reputation and correcting if we make some mistake, accepting the mistake, tell the public honestly, fix it. There's a lot of these things are needed, right? Trust.
Take ownership, right? Take ownership will be
take ownership, and then because nobody's perfect and nobody come into this, right? So we need to, especially in the financial area, we make mistake, we got to apologize to the customer. We don't not to happen again. We land it and together with this the customer in the journey. Of course, we do so many things, but that's what help us. That before the trust, the customer have a confidence. I would deal with AIA Bank, I would deal with Yoma Bank because they were through their best for the the system. I mean, and they would do their best. But even they make some problem happen, they take the responsibility, they will take accountability and resolve for us, right? So that's a kind of confidence that we can put in the consumer. The chances that trustability will increase over the time, right? So trust is something we need to earn in this human context. The other part is in the system level of trust. I mean, that's where you start with the zero trust, right? So today the technology evolved a lot more advanced, right? So we were talking about in the old days, IT was probably 10 years ago or back in 20, right? So we talk about physical data center and parameterization, putting the firewall behind the DMZ, we put in this. So that we trust inside, and any guy who can trust, we put it inside our system. Anybody we don't trust, put outside there, right? So that's the kind of mentality that information security evolved. But today world, that you can no longer put the boundary. So what digital trust mean? And you say one side zero trust, but the other side say we need to trust the system, right? So I think technology, we need to think very differently in a way that today I see very differently in the digital trust because I can actually give more transition. I can allow more of these irregular behavior because I have a rich of data collected. That's the data collected in multiple sources, geolocations, the transitional behavior, emerging into analytics, with the AI, machine learning, and the device, the end-to-end device management, SOCs, etc. Right. So technology evolves quite complicated in a way. actually you can literally monitor every movement, every transition of everybody. I mean, if you really want to go to that extreme, right?
Sure.
Actually, so that way I can build a system where I know exactly it's just a cost factor, but I know exactly what's happening, who's happening. I put in the program, monitor, track, and of course there's a privacy and others, a different issue. But the way the system can be really get technology evolved so advanced, that's also with the biometric today. So, today, a lot of these smartphone has a biometric. So how people can, with face recognition, biometric fingerprint, how this person can even, I mean, try to cheat and run away, Now I'm so worried about my privacy. I go to the airport and I get arrested, for not paying at the city mart for the drink, right? So you have that one side is that really the technology evolve and technology advance. So we must allow that to be balanced. One is a human's trust and the other is technology, how much we can tie in, make the system is a robust, able to track and able to solve those problems. But at the same time, the other side, the human psychology, how to make people comfortable, confident using your system. So I think we need to add this balance and build the trust on it, not just in technical aspect, but also human psychology aspect. And both will do well. I think you over the time we will earn
better trust.
The customer.
Yeah. Thank you, Go. And I think very, very comprehensive answer. And I saw that Forum has replied to one of the participants, Dr. Professor Dr. Dominic Sistoin, asking about the zero trust architecture. I think you also resonates with what Go Chris was said earlier. Correct? Forum, would you like to add anything for the building the digital trust?
I just keep it. Oh, sorry, Leonard, want to explain something? No.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I'd keep it simple and say for Myanmar, as it continues to grow and develop its own strategy, to be aspirational, which means to not get bogged down into status quo and think about how do you transform, but to create something new, to be accessible, keep it simple, keep it cheap, keep it available, and be adaptable. Things are changing. 5 years ago, the technologies that were driving it have changed. We are looking at 5G, edge computing coming in and completely transforming. So whatever you do, ready to be adapt to the new advancements and take advantage of those things would probably be my way of saying how can you build digital trust.
Yeah, you don't close the gate. You let people in, but make sure that they do the right things internally, right? So that's the idea. Yes, Leonard, the digital trust.
Yeah, so I think all excellent point. And I think there's nothing much I can add other than saying that perhaps in order to build a trust, you have to start from no trust. Right, and especially I think as Go Chris mentioned, for example, that how long should I trust someone, or how long should I trust a particular application or particular supplier or business partner, because things are accelerating, things are changing very quickly. What we assess today to be secure, it may not be tomorrow. So the question is that how long, how do we react to the dynamic nature of trust? I think that's something which is evolving, is interesting to see. But I would say, and I would echo what Forum mentioned, I think in order for us to innovate, we cannot be too bogged down with, trying to find who can we trust, and we want only to work with people that we trust. I think that's not the way we should be. Keep it simple, but, and I think having no trust, meaning that you allow people to check whether you are, doing the right thing, and for you to give an opportunity to check whether people are doing the right thing, as and when needed. I think that's very important. So no trust is a trust, basically.
Yeah, that's very good answers, and thank you all. Go Chris and Go Jocelyn, Forum, Go Kyaw, Go Hlaing, and Leonard for adding all of this together. We've been talking about cybersecurity for the past good 2 hours, right? So I think the audience might already been already tired of hearing about all the threats and vulnerabilities and opportunities. Now here's if you have to give a fresh look at what today's COVID situation, as well as of course challenges we have from all of our perspective, what will be the final thoughts that you would like to impart? And I will start with, of course, Go Jocelyn. I'll end with Leonard. So Go Jocelyn, final thoughts.
So I would like to look at the cybersecurity in 3 pillars, right? It's a triangle. The first is come on from the technology, right? So the technology pillar should be strong so that people trust.
Yeah.
Right. The second part is people consumer, right? The knowledge and the willingness and also trust on the technology is also very important pillar to build the ecosystem. The last one, but not the least, right? The most important pillar is the governance pillar. Governance doesn't mean government, right? So something people will believe that they are well protected, right? So in terms of framework, in terms of rules, regulation, law, all these are also very important pillars. So by building these 3 pillars together, then you will achieve that success. So if any pillar is weak, then there is a chance of failure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Go. Thank you, Go. And final words. And I'll go to Htin. Any final thoughts that you'd like to impart to the audience before we take the Q&A, of course, questions and answers?
Yes. So one message, Mike, that I want to give is that one of the major factors that we found in a lot of the fraud cases or security incidents is that when users are not aware or users are not conforming to the secure usage guidelines that we have. Right? So this is actually due to the leak of personal information, and that should not be revealed publicly. So that's why actually we are also providing continuous education to our customers about the mobile money security against these external threats. But one thing that I want to just leave it to everybody is that you need to keep your secret codes, OTP, PIN, security information private. That is very, very, very important.
So it's a shared responsibility model, right? Not only the provider, but also the consumer have to protect their own data.
Exactly. Good, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you. And go, Chris. Final words.
Sure. I think we have shared a lot of good practice, learning from all the legions, in the region ASEAN. So my last words on this today's seminar I'd like to focus on is talents. I think Myanmar, we have I think beat the number of IT professional. I've seen some of these our good friends, Professor the Mimi Sutwins and all this from the university. So my thought around this panel actually is that we do need to train, recruit, and advance the cybersecurity professional. And there are a lot of huge opportunity to not only to service the in the region and in the Myanmar context, but usually these professionals can work all over the world. I mean, they can do the pen test for the companies in the US. They can do any part of these things, advice and compliance, because there's no boundary. I think especially with the COVID, a lot of IT workers, 99% work from home these days anyway. So I think the big, huge opportunity for the younger generation in IT to really going through, and learning from this, evolving the latest technology, and then especially in the cloud-centric, in the system, ecosystem, and a lot of security, the design thinking, and also for innovation, and also for a lot of job opportunities out there. So my talk is that maybe, if somebody today start thinking about in IT and specializing securities, and I think we do need a lot of these people in this country. I do
agree.
We need to hire them. We need to engage them. We need to put them in, in the bank. So we have always hard time finding the good quality people, always the case, right? So I see this is a forum as an opportunity to promote this job. I think a security job,
careers,
career perspective, to work with MiSA, and of course, Kyaw Solin has been the kind of go-to leaders. I think he will bind for us cigars more often.
for have informal roundtables, right? And hopefully when this COVID thing is over, Forum Leonard can also join us, right?
We welcome in the Htin line, particularly the blogs, right? I think what we want to do is that we want to create opportunity for the next generation. I mean, we are a little bit older, getting age. I'm not saying they're too old, but, but our job is to create opportunity for our younger generation in IT professional coming into security and providing industry perspective, offering job opportunity, career advancement, industry practice, and then making them this opportunity realist, combining with university, industry, organization like yours, also bank like us, and the Yomas, and also the WePay from Htin, all these industry partner, and also regional leaders like the Leonard and people. I think it's important that the Myanmar resources, our people advance and able to provide in this, not just a technology as we are hard technology spending money, but also on our people we train and develop and cultivate and provide opportunity. So that I want to give opportunity for the youth, and I think this is my thought will be there will be a lot of job, a lot of good paying job in security for you guys. That's for sure.
Thank you, Chris. And that's one of the pillars for MiSA's objective is to build the cybersecurity professional careers and promoting, advancing their careers as well. Forum, ISACA, definitely, right? So we're signing MOU with MiSA, and hopefully we can promote that. What are your thoughts for your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think certainly welcome the partnership, the opportunity to share. Exchange thoughts and practices. I'd say, again, from Myanmar, everybody said really good things, and I hope, we look back and kind of pay attention to specific aspects of the pillars that all the esteemed panelists mentioned. I really think that innovation needs to be the theme for ASEAN nations, especially those that are, developing and can leverage this as an opportunity. In that, the theme could, from my perspective, should be learn from the world, but build locally. Whatever solutions we do, whether it is by the people, the solutions, they have to be local. The time, I think, has gone where we could say if it worked in the US, it needs to work here. It shouldn't. Our customers deserve better, and we need to build buy local for local, and then you can transform and sell it outside. But it should be inclusive in the sense that we can learn from everything else that the world has done over the years, and then see how innovation, Myanmar style, ASEAN style, APAC style, can truly help transform the lives of 700 million young people that we have in this region who are accessing internet for the first time, digital payments for the first time, digital health for the first time. And it can show to the world how it can truly carry a generation of people to the next level.
Yeah, thank you for very kind words, and I do agree with you. Locally growing the expertise as well as adopting the international standards and try to localize it so that it makes sense for the local people as well as local communities here. Leonard, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would like to say that never waste a crisis, even though situations are uncertain at this point of time. But there's no need for us to always be on the negative side. And in fact, I would like to say that this is the best time for all the technologies to shine and to really show what they can do. Right? We always be on the second line of defense, whether you are in application developments, we are in security and risk management and audit, right? You're always on that second or third layer of defense. But with all this digital transformation going on, right, I think this is the time that we show that we can enable things. We can help the organization to adapt, to reinvent themselves, to create a new digital channel through digital transformations and other initiatives. So I think, to me, this is exciting time. I mean, not only for us, but also for people who are yet to be in our profession. So I would appeal to all our leaders here to show the way to all our next generation and spread the word. I mean, if no one yet, if they are doing something else, right, this is probably the best time to convert into the industry. And there are a lot of example. I just want to quote this. I'm not aware of a local example, but in UK, for example, the UK government has been experimenting, right? They take 50 people from chef, waiters, and all kind of IT profession, put them into a boot camp, and more than half of them stays in cybersecurity industries and profession afterwards. And recently I was also become aware that there's a cyber discovery school. These are 13 to 15 years students that were sent to SENSE technical training, which is highly technical training, get certified, and they are ready to join the workforce. I think we have to do that as well, and I hope MiSA, ISACA, the big enterprises like Yoma Bank could be a part of that enablers to convert people into joining our cybersecurity profession.
Thank you, Leonard, and thank you all for your wonderful wishes as well for MiSA as well. Now we do have the Q&A session. For the interest of time, we would take these questions offline, and then you can submit your questions on even after the event on our Facebook page, MyanmarISA.org, which is on Facebook. So you can go and log in submit your questions, and we'll try to get everybody in. And thank you for answering some of the questions that we have from the audience as well. With that, I would like to conclude our today's successfully finishing our CXO Round Table, our inaugural event for MiSA Cybersecurity Series, organized by Myanmar Information Security Association, in partnership with, of course, all of the esteemed panelists and speakers here. I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Leonard Aung, Mr. Foreign Meta, Go Hlaing, Go Htin, as well as Go Hlaing. And thank you, IA Bank team, for also helping us with the logistics of the digital event, Masunana and the team. So I'd like to thank everyone and wishes everyone a safe, staying safe home, as well as wishing you all the best for your future. Okay, thank you very much.
And
okay.
thank you to you, Mike, as well.
Thank you.